It's not that the man's strength is not as good as Shueing. If they're fighting one by one, the standards of the two are actually about the same. Even if Shueing is more powerful, she probably won't be much more powerful. At least, she has no ability to kill her opponent alone. But Yongkai's short moment battle gave the man a great shock. The scream and cry for help from the seductive woman before her death disturbed his mind, making him unable to meet the enemy with all his strength. What's more, Yongkai was still standing not far away staring at him, and this man became more and more anxious. He couldn't understand how, just a few breaths of effort, why his junior sister died. He knows the strength of his junior sister, which is not much different from him. How could she die in the hands of a second-order void return stage cultivator in such a short time? He was shocked and didn't know what happened between the junior sister and the young man. The fear of the unknown has caused him to fall short. How can he show his full strength? Naturally, Shueing will not miss the opportunity to vent all the anger that she has been chased in this way, and give the full display of various secret treasures and secret technique that belong to the monster race. The man was completely suppressed, and the situation of the battle showed a one-sided situation. Obviously he didn't want to sit still, bit his tongue in his busy schedule, spit out a mouthful of blood, and used a powerful secret technique to block Shueing for a moment, then his body turned into an after-image and suddenly disappeared from the place. He wanted to retreat and didn't dare to continue the entanglement with Shueing. Before leaving, he also glanced at Yongkai and found that this unfathomable young man was just standing there and didn't seem to have any intention of blocking him, which made him helplessly relieved. Just when he thought he had escaped from the dead, the space around him suddenly became sticky. His figure paused involuntarily, his eyes narrowed, and he shouted in horror, "She!" He is also a powerful person in the third-order void return stage, naturally knowing the mystery and effect of the she, and stepping into this thick space. He knew that he had fallen into a powerful she. The power of this she is much thicker than what he owns, and it is so powerful that he is frightened, and it seems that this she is mixed with other weird powers. He didn't dare to neglect, he quickly released his own she to fight against it, but he could only restore himself a little bit of freedom. It is impossible to break away from this she in a short time. A person was photographed into his eyes. He looked up and exclaimed, "How could you be here?" At this moment, he was shocked to discover that Yongkai, who should have been watching the battle from a distance, had come not far in front of him. He didn't even notice the other party's movements. "Why can't I be here?" Yongkai grinned, gradually increasing his she power. The man caught in it, suddenly sweated heavily and struggled. Chi-chi. A slight noise came from all directions, and the man looked around, and suddenly found that the space around him seemed to be collapsing, with dark, weak and weird cracks constantly appearing and disappearing. His courage broke entirely. He never knew that someone's she would have such an incredible effect on space. At this moment, he finally understood that it was not just accident that his junior sister died so quickly. This young man in the second-order void return stage was the most terrifying enemy. Without giving him a chance to resist, Yongkai's fingers flicked dozens of pitch-black space blades, shot out one after another. Easily defeated the man's protective Saint Yuan and defense artifact, cut his body into several pieces, and banished most of his flesh and blood into the endless void. The man fell down, and the broken bodies were scattered all over the place. Shueing looked at all this with trembling beautiful eyes, her delicate body shivering with chills. Although she also knew that Yongkai killed the man with some sneak attack, his strength was beyond doubt. No wonder Shueing would be taught a lesson, no wonder he was so afraid of him. There is a reason for all this. Judging from his performance just now, when he dealt with Mitian and Shueing, he should not have exerted his full strength, otherwise, how could those two guys still survive? Shueing always thought. On the void return stage, Mitian and Shueing were already strong enough, and the two of them were the existence that she admired, but today, she knew that she was a little frog sitting on the well. The void return stage can be more powerful. The arrogance and disdain in her eyes quickly faded, and she began to re-examine Yongkai. Perhaps, Sister Qingluo's choice was not wrong. She thought so in her heart. Yongkai looked at her. Shueing quickly put it aside, did not dare to look at him. She didn't know why she would do this, but deep in her heart, there was a trace of fear surging for this young man. He can easily kill the two people who are chasing her in a very short period of time, and he can also kill her effortlessly. Shueing swayed, picked up the space ring of the two dead, came to Yongkai and handed it to him. Thanks. Yongkai chuckled, and didn't refuse. He put away the two space rings without even looking at them. He pondered for a moment and asked, well, where is the domain stone you mentioned? I'll take you there. Shueing volunteered to move in one direction, showing her body skills. How is your injury? Yongkai asked casually after following her. Small injury, it's no big deal. Shueing replied lightly. Yongkai stopped talking, and followed her through the blood prison. The place where Shueing found domain stone is not too far away from the previous position, and it only takes about an hour to reach it. I have to tell you one thing. Halfway, Shueing's eyes flickered, as if she was a little guilty. What? Yongkai looked at her suspiciously. Actually, the two people you killed have their companions. Shueing rolled her head and looked at Yongkai. Where? Yongkai was stunned. On the side of the domain stone. Shueing became more anxious, gritted her teeth, and told the truth. I found those domain stones before. I wanted to go in and take them out, but I met those guys. There are a total of 5 people who seem to be from the same cultivation star. 2 of them are chasing after me, and the other 3 are staying where they are. I don't know if they can succeed now. If they succeed, that's right, just grab it. Yongkai grinned. Shueing frowned and looked at him seriously. Aren't you angry? I didn't tell you the truth before. I lied to you. A little bit. Yongkai nodded lightly. Shueing's face changed slightly. But it doesn't matter to me, so I don't bother to care about it. Yongkai smiled slightly, continued to lead the way. Good. Shueing let out a soft breath, finally relieved. After a while, Yongkai raised his brows, showing a look of joy, and asked, is it right ahead? I feel the fluctuations of domain. Shueing nodded, speeding up a lot. After a while, Yongkai and Shueing came to a domain whirlpool. The vortex of this domain covers an area of about 200 feet, and the internal fluctuations produce fearful energy fluctuations. In the center of the vortex of that domain, there are a few fist-sized stones with inexplicable luster all over the body. Domain stone. Yongkai's eyes lit up, staring scorchingly at the few domain stones. It was the first time he saw something like domain stone, so he was naturally curious, but because of the barrier of the domain vortex, he could not release his spiritual mind to investigate carefully, and he didn't know how many domain stone there were. But it is undeniable that any domain stone is of great value, and if you take it out, you can exchange many precious resources for cultivation, or you can absorb the power of the domain stone yourself to understand the mystery of the domain. And within this area of 200 meters, there are 3 people in it, each occupying a different position, sitting cross-legged. Looking from their posture, it seems to be in the middle of comprehending the mystery of domain, in order to rush inward and take away the domain stone. The great value of the domain stone is not only the source and the hidden domain mystery, but also the risk of obtaining it. Things have always been rare and precious, and this is vividly reflected in domain stone. The domain stone has always been born in the domain vortex. If you want to obtain the domain stone, you must first understand the mystery of the domain vortex before you can go to the deepest point and take the domain stone safely. Countless experts of the third order void return stage fell within the domain vortex, and their lives and blood gave the domain stone a supreme value. In order to obtain a domain stone, perhaps someone died for it. However, several domain stones were born in the domain vortex in front of him, which naturally made Yongkai very excited. He just casually glanced at the 3 strangers who had penetrated into the vortex, and paid no attention to it. The domain vortex in front of him gave him the feeling that it was neither strong nor weak. It was weaker than the one who strangled Shudinyang to death. Otherwise, the 3 of them would not be able to stay inside safely. The arrival of Yongkai and Shueing naturally shocked the three people who were sitting cross-legged in the domain. These three opened their eyes, and their eyes turned around Yongkai and Shueing. One of the white-haired old men couldn't help but shout in surprise, "Enchantress, why are you still alive?" Shueing snorted coldly, "Old thing, did I disappoint you by being alive? Where are the two brothers and sisters?" Another one-eyed man with a grim expression frowned and asked coldly. Shueing sneered, "Since I have come back alive, what do you think their ending is?" "Impossible." The one-eyed man's expression changed. He tasted the meaning revealed in Shueing's words, and looked unwilling to believe it. "Yes, it's just you, Enchantress, alone. Do you have the ability to kill the brother and sister? You are too overwhelmed." The third person sneered, apparently thinking Shueing was talking nonsense. "Believe it or not, it's up to you." Shueing didn't want to explain more, gritted her teeth and said, "The two are dead, and it will be your turn next." The white-haired old man was startled, and immediately laughed. "The Enchantress is rampant. Her tone is bigger than the sky. Good, good. The old man is in the domain vortex now, and it is inconvenient to act. After the old man comes out of here, I will have a good fight with you." To be continued.